Hi everyone. In this demonstration, I'm going to show you an example of connecting IBM MQ to Kafka using the MQ source connector as part of the IBM MQ product. And in this scenario, I'm going to show the source connector basically sending messages from a queue on MQ on ZOS to a Kafka topic. So we're going to be using client mode for this simple example, but for optimizing for responsiveness, you would typically want to use the connector in bindings mode, so running next to the queue manager on ZOS. So that would look something a little bit more like this, but just for demonstration, I'm going to show you it in client mode. So you can see here on my MQ queue manager called ZQS1, I have a queue set up, just a regular local queue called Kafka queue. You can see that there's nothing in it currently. And then I've also gone ahead and set up a server con channel. So this will allow me to build that connection between MQ and my workstation in this case. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and start Zookeeper. So Kafka uses Zookeeper for essential coordination tasks amongst the Kafka brokers. It's important to note here, though, that Kafka is moving away from Zookeeper and towards Craft, which is based on the Raft consensus protocol for future versions of Kafka. So Zookeeper looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and try and start my Kafka server. One thing to note is some of the prep work I did here was just installing the Kafka product on my system. So the next step here is to start my Kafka connector. So I'm just pulling the open source version of this provided by the MQ Development Lab. And I've already done this, so I have it installed in a directory on my machine. And this is actually where the customization is going to take place. So just to show you, in this case, I'm going to have edited my MQ source properties file. And you can see here, this is where I'm actually going to do the customization required for my specific interest in doing a client mode connection with a queue manager and the topic. So if we take a closer look, we can see all of the things that I customized. So I have my topic, name, I have my queue manager name, my client connection type, my channel name since I'm using client mode, my connection name for my queue manager running on ZOS and the port number. And then if I were going to be using more security, if this wasn't just a demo environment, I'd also be able to specify my SSL information here. If I wanted to use a different type of record builder, meaning the translation between MQ and Kafka messages, if I didn't want to use the default, I could specify another type here. And then several more well-documented properties. So this is really where you would do the bulk of your configuration. So one of the other things we're going to need to customize here is the connect standalone properties file in the Kafka directory structure under config. So what this does is we just need to make sure that we specify the correct path for our installation of the MQ Kafka connector and specify that it's the source down here. So one thing to note is just for test purposes, we're using this connect standalone, but to have a more high availability solution here, you would want to use connect distributed, and that would be a little bit more complicated of a configuration. But you can see that it's this one right here that comes with Kafka. Okay, so our connect standalone properties, our MQ source properties, and then we're going to be running the connect standalone script. So I'm just going to get out of this config file. Okay, so the connector has now started. Okay, so we have started our connector, and if we just wanted to check on what the values look like, we can go ahead and see now that the connector is turned on. We have our channel name specified here. We have our client specification here, our connection name list to give us the IP address and port number of our ZOS queue manager. And what else do we have here? The queue name and the queue manager name. So nothing else is really, also the topic on Kafka that we specified in our MQ source properties. So all of these things, we should be able to now head over to our queue manager and see, we have our connection via a server con channel to our queue, Kafka queue. And then if we look at our server con, we should see that our Kafka server con is running. Excellent. So now I'm going to start a consumer on Kafka on my designated topic, kafka.topic. And then what I should be able to do is put a message to my queue on ZOS and then see it show up in this consumer window over here. Move that around. So it'll show up in a little bit of a funky format, but hopefully just to give you a sense of the communication working. So test 01 on ZOS. And you can see I'm starting to have some sort of message pop up here. I'll keep going. You can see that it's not in plain text, but you can see also that the communication is working. Nice. Okay, so just to recap here, what we did was build a connection between a queue manager running on ZOS and a Kafka topic called Kafka topic, very creatively, and used client mode to do this. And we have many customers interested in doing this sort of work, either using client mode or bindings mode. So this is just a short tutorial to show you how the connection between MQ and Kafka actually looks like.